Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dairy Raid. And before the list gets any bigger, and hopefully it won't over the holidays, over the next couple of days, anyways, thought I would go through the list of Badger players who've already entered the transfer portal and give a brief 2 cents on each of them and where I think the loss is for the program. Some of these are going to be pretty brief because, well, in the cold, hard reality of football, a lot of these guys didn't do anything. And then there are going to be players that are going to take a little bit more thought to process their departure. And I can see a lot of these guys from two very opposite but equally over the top reactions from the over analytical, what they did wrong, how they didn't fit, and the reality of what we're actually losing on the field in terms of production, to then the sky is falling, the message boards were right, Wisconsin football is dying, RIP Wisconsin football, over the top hyperbole that has become a staple of Wisconsin fandom over the last few years, to ultimately land in the middle, which is basically a lot of these guys are really good players. We are going to miss them, but they will all be replaced. And that is the transfer portal era of college football. And this is a very good reminder that we should not be getting attached to these players because we could do bad, they could play bad, and they'll leave, or we could play good and they could play good and they could leave. It's not just juniors leaving for the NFL anymore, it's everything in between. So I think this offseason and this transfer portal should really cement home the idea that we cannot get attached to players anymore because they could leave for a variety of different reasons. So, all right, so let's take a look at this. I've got the list pulled up here, pulled it up on badgerbacker.com, which is run by great Badger writer Christian Borman. I encourage you guys all to go read his stuff. And in fact, I'm going to put a link, if YouTube allows me, I'm going to put a link right here. If not, it will be in the description of this video that you can go read his stuff. He's got everything here in a nice handy dandy chart in order of when they've left. And let's just get into it. All right. So, first up, the first player to enter the portal, linebacker Corey Raymond. No idea who he is. I assume he's a walk-on. And not to sound cruel, but this is going to be something this also applies to Angel Toombs, which is going to come down later in the list. In fact, I'm going to list them both together. About the ideas of walk-ons in the new roster rules. The idea of a walk-on is very much going to change. And I really think that unless a walk-on can, after year two, unless they can push themselves into a position where they would be getting a scholarship, because remember, scholarships don't matter anymore. It's 105 players on the roster, regardless if you have them on scholarship or not 85 scholarships and then your infinite number of walk-ons. These walk-ons have to be able to get on the football field. And if there's not a path to playing time for both the player and a vision of that path for the coaching staff after 2 years, then I think a walk-on, it's better to part ways because you're holding up a spot from somebody who can make a difference for the team. As cruel as that sounds, whether it be picking up a a G5 linebacker to specifically play special teams or whatever. The use of a walk on is very different, and the fact that we can bring in literally 105 scholarship caliber players, a walk on has very limited time to show that they can play. So nothing against Cody Raymond, but he falls into that category. The same thing with Angel Toombs. Angel Toombs has changed positions a couple times. He wasn't going to get on the field. And if those two want to play football, getting out of Madison is their best option. And I wish them all the best with that. All right. The next one we want to talk about, receiver Kyan Barry Johnson. Again, he was quite a hyped player coming in as the only receiver in the 2024 class. I'm sorry, yes, 2024 class. Come on, brain work. But he was too small. He had attitude problems. He immediately got into the doghouse with his position coach. And what was his path to playing time? Tretch was always going to be above him. We'll get to Tretch later. Tyrell Henry was above him. And now in a system where the top three receivers are going to be on the field, and they don't all, there isn't necessarily that traditional slot, and especially a guy who I don't see having much value in the run game. We're not losing anything, and it's best for him to move on. So he just wasn't a fit with how the direction the offense is going, and I don't see a path to playing time. Remington Moss, I was kind of surprised he didn't last as long. I thought he would give more time instead of one season. But again, they brought in 2 safeties in the transfer portal. They're already talking about adding more safeties in the transfer portal. That leads you to think that given time to develop, maybe he could get some playing time. But this also leads into a very important question in the transfer portal is does Remington Moss have the patience to wait his turn? And I don't blame him for not. So if he thinks he can find greener pastures somewhere else, he can do that. Because again, with the transfer portal as well, why wait on the bench when you can go to somewhere and play now and then jump in the portal again and go somewhere bigger after that? There's really no sense in sitting on the bench if you don't expect to play. And I think Remington Moss is a good example of that. Atticus Bertram, the punter, he really improved last season. I think he was fine earlier in this year, and then Sean West came in and just played better. And there's only room on the roster for so many punters, and with 1 year of eligibility remaining, I can see why he wouldn't want to sit and risk the chance of not playing and wasting that year of eligibility. So he will find a new place to play. This could also very much signify a change in style for how we're punting at Wisconsin. So I'm sure he'll find a program that needs a rugby-style Australian punter and have no issues there. Cade Yakameli. Let's get into him. Cade Yakameli, how do I put this? He was never as good as that 8.3 or whatever yards per carry that he got going into last year. A lot of that came in garbage time. But regardless, Cade Yakimelli is, as a running back, a one-trick pony. And I know people are screaming at me through the screen, you can be a specialist. Cade Yakimelli could run one type of run play, one cut and go. The problem was this year and also last year is that one cut started to turn in a cut and a pattern. He lacked some decisiveness that we would expect that we'd have by now. He's still kind of learning how to be a running back. He came into Wisconsin as a safety / athlete type, and you would expect by now, you would expect more. But I think the hype and him being labeled a freak did not match what is needed to be a college running back, an every down college running back, a complete college running back. And so if that's what he wants to be, then I don't see a path to playing time here. I think he's behind the other backs that are already here. He's a core special teams guy, and that's what's ultimately going to get him a chance to play anywhere beyond college is his special teams ability. So, again, so far on this list, when it comes down to actual production in meaningful games and meaningful parts of games, with the 5 players we've talked about so far, we're not missing much. Which brings us to Joseph Griffin Jr., and he is a guy that I think his time here was cursed by his eligibility issues last season, and that really put him behind in terms of finding a role. He was that big-bodied, quote-unquote, boundary receiver that could have really fit in well in the air raid offense, and he was a contrast to the other outside receivers that we had in the system last season or 2024. And the fact that he wasn't able to get playing time because of his eligibility issues, that put him behind. And then this season, when the offense kind of changed focus to more of a downfield vertical passing game, that doesn't fit his game. And as much as I would love to have a 6'5" receiver, they didn't know how to use him. He's already behind. It's a good opportunity for him to get out there and see if he wants to get some playing time to go find somewhere else that could use his talent, it could fit him a little bit better. And I'm sure he'll find somewheres. Next up is Tackett Curtis. He is the poster child of the what if, what could have been. He has all the talent in the world. In 2024, he was hampered by injuries and was never quite at full speed. I think this year, early on, he looked better. He looked faster. He then kind of got into second, again, kind of what he got in trouble with last year. He started second-guessing his reads. He wasn't decisive. When he was decisive, he could run sideline to sideline. And then when he wasn't, he was just a stick in the mud and just stood there. And then he got dinged up. And then the young guys passed him. And he never got a chance to get back on the field. He got Wally pipped, but not really. He kind of did it to himself. His play on the field on top of his injury led to him getting benched. And when the young guys, when Cooper Catalano and Mason Posa got in, they weren't going to leave, and they were everything that Tackett Curtis wasn't. They were athletic and decisive. They attacked the football always. They didn't second guess themselves as much. And the defense was better when those two were in. And did Tackett Curtis see himself as a backup? I wouldn't. And in this day and age, I mean, he's not a guy who grew up and was here for years, got his opportunity and got hurt. He came in, he got hurt, he got his opportunity, and he didn't run with it. So that's Tackett Curtis. Tretch Kekahuna. Tretch had so much potential and flair, athletic ability, big play ability. And I'm going to miss that. What I'm not going to miss is the fact that he's still not a good route runner. I'm not going to miss the fact that he could easily be rerouted on his routes. I'm not going to miss his ball security issues. I'm not going to miss the fact that he wasn't an asset in the return game. And I'm not going to miss the lack of effort that he showed when he knew he wasn't getting the football. Tape don't lie. And I'm going to miss Tretch at his best. And I'm going to try to forget Tretch at his worst. Because we can't... we needed what he could be. And unfortunately, I don't think he lived up to it. And you could say it was the offensive coordinators, you could say whatever. But if you honestly look at him on the field, he was not a very good route runner. He had ball security issues. He wasn't physical. He was undersized, and it showed. So, as much as the skill is there, the production wasn't. And I think he's going to go find a home somewhere on the West Coast and in an offense that fits his skill set. I think Arizona, where he originally committed, might be a great fit. They run the air raid. He could be a great scat back type slot receiver for them. So, anyways, Angel Toombs, where I talked about Jake Renfro. At this point, it's I feel bad for him because he just could not stay healthy. And some of it was not his fault. I mean, he got rolled. The injury that knocked him out this season was him getting rolled up on by his own teammate, getting bowled over. There's nothing he can do about that. That's not being injury prone. That's being injury unlucky. And I think Jake knows that maybe his football career is going to be over soon. And he just wants to give it one more shot. And he's not going to do that here, being on the bench. I think the center position needs to get younger, and we're not going to wait for Jake Renfro. So I wish him all the best. But it's another what if. Imagine if he had been healthy his entire time here, how things could have been different. But it is what it is. Next up, let's go. We've got two inside linebackers. Let's go with Ontario Turner. And he was someone that we heard about in spring ball. And I think a lot of us thought was going to get into the rotation because they were looking to preserve red shirts on the younger inside linebackers. But I think part of that was because Mason Posa was still wrestling in high school. And when he came in at fall camp, and you see a young guy with all of his eligibility who can play right now, you take that chance. And I know Turner came in as a transfer portal guy. The little bit that we saw of him during spring, he's a decent linebacker, but he's not going to get any playing time. And with 1 year of eligibility, is he going to waste that 1 year of eligibility not playing? No. And that's, again, how college football has changed. He has the opportunity to get playing time. And I don't blame him for doing that. The other inside linebacker, Christian Allegro. So, this one hurts. He's a really good inside linebacker. He is that plugger, get downhill and be physical type of inside linebacker. And he played young, he played early, he's played a lot of football for the Badgers. And then he got hurt. And he got Wally pipped, where the young guys came in and replaced him and did his job better. I think Christian Allegro has been a very solid linebacker for us for 3 years. I think Mason Posa is better. I think Cooper Catalano is better. So, Mike Tressel in an interview recently talked about how they had planned to use all three of those guys at the inside linebacker spots and how they envisioned the defense around those three guys. And that's great. They talked about Christian Allegro, being able to hold his ground at the spot that he's used to and comfortable playing. And they would move Mason Posa into that star linebacker role out of the box. And that's great in base rundowns, etc. But what about when they go nickel and they bring the nickel in there and they only going to have two inside linebackers on the field at the same time? You're not going to bench Mason Posa for Christian Allegro. Mason Posa is better in nickel situations. Cooper Catalano is better in nickel situations than Christian Allegro. So he's going to end up on the bench. Or, some people talk, you can turn him into a Mason Reiger stand-up outside linebacker type. He's not. That's not his position. He's shorter. He's 6'3". I think Mason Reiger's 6'5". His reach is not the same. And it's not his playing style. He's not a pass rusher. He's a run-stopping inside linebacker. And at the end of the day, he got injured. Someone replaced him. Someone played better than him. And those guys aren't going to give up their spots. And I wouldn't expect Christian Allegro to expect them to give up their spots. So with 1 year remaining and a chance to go to the NFL, I think he needs a fresh start in a defense where he can play his natural position, a defense where he can be an every down inside linebacker like he used to be before he got injured. And I think he's a program guy. I don't think he necessarily wants to leave Wisconsin. But if he wants to play the amount of football that he expects to and deserves to, it's not going to be at Wisconsin. So it is what it is. All right, on to next, the most surprising entry in the transfer portal, and that is Jameer Latimer. I'm kidding. He was part of the package deal for his brother to go to WVU. It is what it is. I think he was a solid nickel for us. I thought he played well at times. From a football point of view, maybe he doesn't want to always just be a nickel. Maybe he wants to go back to being a corner. I don't know. I don't care. At the end of the day, we'll find a new nickel. And he wasn't able to get his brother to honor his commitment and come to Wisconsin. So I hope they enjoy their time in West Virginia. So that's all we're going to say about that. The next two I'm going to lump together because a lot of my thoughts on them kind of overlap. And that is Eugene Hilton Jr. and Dylan Jones. From a strictly football point of view and their production this season and their player profiles going forward, I think Dylan Jones was the most complete running back on the Badgers offense going into this offseason, but I don't think he's the best running back for the offense this offseason. And you might be thinking that doesn't make sense. What I mean by that is he's a solid runner, he's a good blocker, he can catch passes if presented the opportunity. He can do all three. He's an every down back, and he was really the true every down back we had on the roster. But he averaged less than 4 yards a carry. And people are telling me, oh, it's because of the offensive line. I mean, he played with the first thing, he had the opportunity to play the games, the non-conference games against Miami, Ohio, and Middle Tennessee. And a guy like Gideon Atuka was getting his carries against Oregon and Indiana, Washington, Illinois until he got hurt, etc. Sure, by that point, the offensive line had played better, but all things being considered, I think at the end of the day, the combination of Darian Dupree and Gideon Atuka is a better running back than an every down back like Dylan Jones. I think the sum of the talents and the output of Gideon Atuka and Darian Dupree would be better than Dylan Jones, on top of the fact that he's injured. He got injured last year. He got injured this year. Now, Gideon Atuka is coming off an injury, a neck injury or concussion. Darian Dupree also got injured, so that's not saying much, I guess. But at the end of the day, I think Dylan Jones was passed by Gideon Atuka. I think they're going to go to the portal and bring in a running back anyways. And finally, when you bring in three running backs in the same class, the expectation has to be that not all three of them are going to make it through all 4 or 5 years. They're all competing for the same playing time. And one of them is going to be the third string. And I don't think you want to share carries. And the idea of a three-headed monster would be great. I know people have pointed out to me, we used to have three back stables back in the day with Melvin Gordon and Monte Ball and James White, et cetera, et cetera. I guarantee you if the transfer portal was a thing back then, James White would have transferred out after his sophomore year. And Melvin Gordon could have easily transferred out after his freshman year. when he ripped all those big yards against Nebraska in the Big Ten championship game. Things are different, so let's not compare it to them. I think Dylan Jones is a solid running back. We are going to miss him, but he will be replaced. Eugene Hilton Jr. He's a solid receiver. Good hands. He's a good route runner. He is wise beyond his years for being so young. That's a credit to his father and the upbringing that he's had. He's, on paper, one of the most talented receivers we ever brought in as a recruit. But receivers want to catch passes. And even if this offense was performing at a higher level with competent quarterback play by Wisconsin standards, I don't know if there was going to be enough passes to keep him happy. On top of that, I don't think the way that the offense was called this year, regardless of who the quarterback was called in a way that would make high-level receiver talent happy. So I am not surprised that he left. Not one bit, because why would a receiver want to play at Wisconsin? That's the pessimistic side of me saying that. The more realistic side of me saying that is going back to what I was talking about before with some of these guys who, instead of waiting their turn, they go somewhere to get playing time and use that as a springboard to go forward. Now, I'm not starting any rumors here, but I am paying attention to who Eugene Hilton Jr.'s father played for in college. And I know where the kid went to high school. And I can connect some dots. And it could very likely be that he found a place where he could get playing time early. He got playing time. He got some film on himself with the expectation that he was going to enter the portal after his freshman year anyways. Because you're not going to develop sitting on the bench. At least that is the mentality that young players have nowadays. So that could easily be a reason why he could be leaving, because that was always the plan. That's the negative, snarky side of me thinking of that. It's probably a combination of that and the fact that this offense is not conducive to a high-powered passing offense, and why would he want to stay there? So that is it. And that is all of the players as of Festivus Eve, or night, December 23rd. I'm sure by the time I finish recording this, and this will be posted on Christmas Eve. So when you're listening to this, Merry Christmas. I'm sure, even in the time that it took me to record this, more players have entered the portal, because of course that would be my luck. I will again end with this. In this new era of college football, and I've said that a million times in this video, I apologize. We can't get excited for a player entering the program. We can't get excited for a player doing well. We just need to set our sights up on the football field. And anything that happens off the football field is what's going to happen. And don't take it personally. Don't watch football emotionally. Don't get attached to these players emotionally. It's almost like these players are characters in a video game. Because that's how college football is now. and that is the monetization, the commoditizing, whatever, you know what I'm trying to say, of these players. And for every player you're upset that they're leaving, you would do the same thing. You're young, you're dumb, or you're too smart for your own good. You're talented, you got the whole world in front of you, and you have the power. A lot of these kids know how to take it. And how players develop has changed. And it's a smart way to maximize your very short playing career by using the transfer portal as a tool and as a weapon to maximize the time that you have in this sport. You can't be mad at that. And I'm not going to be, and I'm certainly not going to think in terms of hyperbole when it comes to players coming to Wisconsin or leaving Wisconsin anymore. Because what good is it going to do? So that's it. Those are the players entering the portal. My 2 cents. Thank you as always for listening to this. And we will see you guys after the holidays and the actual start of the transfer portal season. Going to finally start to be hearing about offers and commitments. Lots to talk about. Certainly not X's and O's, but at least it's something to talk about, right? All right. Thank you for listening. See you next time.